Maybe, Yannick, I think it logged me out. Will you open the webinar?
It is open now, and people are joining.
I will be recording.
It's already recording. It started automatically.
Perfect.
Good morning, Yassine.
Hi, Eric. How are you? Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Nice to have you. I know you had a keynotes before, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I came running, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
So I think yeah, you have opened the floor because it seems like there are people already on the waiting room, and so we use for the first webinar another licenses of Zoom, and this one we took a bigger one with more control. And I think Yannick is trying to bring now the people who are in the waiting room.
I don't think it's open. You can just only see the panelists.
They're already there.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then we can start, I think.
Yes, so we have 15 people who are attending now.
Mhm.
So if you'd like, we can wait a bit more for more to join. But otherwise, we can also just start since we don't have that much time.
Yes, I think we don't have that much time, so we can start. And when the people will join, I think they will just catch up. So yeah, a warm welcome to this webinar on creating a synergy between research center and tech hub in Africa for knowledge-based innovation and knowledge-based startup. So the webinar is a part of a webinar series of the project Renovation in Africa, which aim to support youth and women, yeah, to develop innovation in the green sectors in Africa. So we have today 4 panelists bringing different perspective when it's come to synergy between research centers and tech hub in Africa. So we will go more or less, we will start with some concrete examples so on how it's work. And then we will also close continuing with more enabling environment, some bigger project at the Pan-African level, which is also supporting this synergy. So each of the panelists will have approximately 5 questions, so that they will address with regard to their activities. And then we will have a last to the top on the way forward. So, so without further ado, so I will start with Dr. Itoro Enembulu, she's a board member of AfriLab. So she will introduce what AfriLab is, but she's also the head of the AfriLab Research Group. So she will also give some word about what the AfriLab Research Group is. And herself, she's also director of TechWest, which is an innovation and accelerator in Nigeria. So yeah, I told 2 questions. Knowing what AfriLab is and the Umbrella Association of Technology and Innovation Hub in the continent. So what is the research group aim at within the AfriLab structure? So at least if you can give us some word about that. What are realities and challenges of TechHub with regard to integrating research and development? So in their processes to support innovators, and what is the added value of integrating R&D in innovation in Africa? So, and how far the AfriLab Research Group is also supporting TechHub in this process.
Thank you very much, Professor Eric. I'm also a director at TechWest STEM Academy, which is a member hub of the AfriLabs group. So I'll be talking a bit more about the AfriLabs research group, which is a 20 cities in 53 African countries. So AfriLab works with a large number of stakeholders, and the idea is to look at Africa potential.
I don't know. We have some difficulty to hear you. It's interrupting. It's a row. So
And drive sustainable economic growth across.
Ituro?
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. I think now it's more fluid, but your introduction was quite interrupted. So yeah, maybe yeah.
Okay, let me just do a quick recap. So I was mentioning about AfriLabs, a bit more about who AfriLabs is. It's a Pan-African organization that consists of over 470 innovation hubs across 53 African countries. And AfriLabs works to support multiple stakeholders economic growth through a community of innovation hubs. And one of the main pillars of AfriLabs is to foster research and learning, which is where AfriLabs, the research group, comes in. So the research group, what we are mainly concerned with is trying to advance knowledge, promote innovation, drive technological development across Africa. And then we also plan to do this through interdisciplinary research projects across the different sectors, because most of our innovation hubs and our core objective is to advance research from Africa. We're trying to build research capabilities within the continent and through our innovation hubs. One of the other things that we aim to do is support and foster research in Africa. We also want to provide an evidence base so that we can also support policy development in the continent. There are lots of research that is being done by different organizations, different hubs, and there we have a lot of pockets and silos of research, and we want to be able to provide a repository where we are able to have research that's coming from Africa and that are useful and relevant to the continent. So those are some of the main objectives that we have for the research group. And how have we supported the innovation hub? Some of the challenges that the hub has in terms of research is even abilities with hubs, entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of learnings that's going on there, but they are in, like I mentioned earlier, they are in silos. So what we're trying to do is to build their research capabilities within those hubs such that they are able to evidence the impact that they are making with the different projects and works they are doing. And so that's one of the benefits or one of the usefulness of integrating synergies with the universities, academic institutions, with the research hubs, because it offers substantial added value to develop knowledge within
You may
innovators and startups that are coming from.
You may remove your camera.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's from, we hear you, but from time to time it's interrupted. Feel free also to switch off the camera, at least to have more bandwidth. And maybe one quick follow-up question to your introduction. I think one of the questions that I will have, a kind of provocative question. So if we are looking in the ecosystem, we can argue, one of the hypotheses is that the scale-up of many innovation are quite restricted, maybe because of this lack of in-depth knowledge. So where you can make some researches and also protected the output of your innovation before bringing that into the market. So when I was the question related to how far and for that, you need also a kind of, I will say, equipment in terms of if we are looking, let's say, Fab Lab of most of the Tech Hub. So the connection with the faculty in universities. So how far the research group is also supporting or empowering the Tech Hub to collaborate more with the university so that if they don't have, let's say, the resources in their hub, they will also leverage on what the university have, not only the equipment, but also the processes. So how far the research group is also working toward this objective? I think it seems like we have some challenges with eToro. Maybe if you can just write your answer, I will then come back to that later and then listen, because we can't hear you. So, but yeah, if you can just type the answer, then I will bring that to the audience later. But then we can continue with another concrete example in the continent. So the UM6P in Morocco. So they organized some week back the first Deep Tech Summit. And in this event, they also bring the participants to visit a bit the infrastructures. And I was one of the participants, very, very impressed about what the UM6P is doing in terms of equipment, in terms of commercialization, how far have they integrated these different components of innovation and entrepreneurship at the university. For that, we have Yassine. So welcome, Yassine. So if you can give us some word on what is the UM6P venture? How have you managed to integrate all these different components of the innovation ecosystem and university together? Also some best practices, which kind of output do you have already? So that would be great. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to participate in this Pan-African discussion. And you come in as a panelist a few weeks ago, and it's a great pleasure to have you and have other speakers from other Pan-African tech hubs. It was an occasion, as you said, to reflect, to discuss how we can work together. I'm going to talk maybe about collaboration later on, because this is one of the challenges that we're facing as an ecosystem. So maybe related to your question about what is UM6P Ventures and what is UM6P Entrepreneurship and Venturing division within UM6P. So UM6P Ventures is basically a venture capital firm. We specialize in early stage investments with a focus on deep technology. And unlike traditional university affiliated venture capital firm, we do invest in a wide array of disruptive technologies. I mean, whether they originate from universities all over the continent, or from independent engineers or researchers across the continent. So beforehand, I mean, during the first years of UM6P Ventures, we used to invest all over the world for one reason, because we believe that innovation is an open-end game. We cannot close the doors and say that we're developing disruptive projects and innovations within our continent. It's just impossible. So this is why we decided to become not only a Pan-African venture capital firm, it's also an international. And this was just huge in terms of all the network that we gained through this investment that we made outside Africa. However, I mean, lately we've been trying to refocus on Africa because of two reasons mainly. Because we think that there are enough initiatives within the African continent in terms of deep tech, that would allow us to trigger the developments of the ecosystem in the continent. And second, because we think that by fostering these collaborations within the Pan-African actors, I think we can help each other in terms of deal flow, in terms of the due diligence, in terms also of developing corridors within the African continent, which is super important to. So the reach is global, and that reflects just our commitment to an open and collaborative ecosystem. At DEV, which is the Entrepreneurship and the Venturing Division, this is a different type of vehicle where the sole or the global objective is how to transform the early stage technologies that are developed within the lab or within the garages or wherever into market-ready products. So our comprehensive process includes, I think, at least 6 steps, but that was not the case at the beginning. I mean, we're super young. We started these entrepreneurial projects 4 years ago. And at the beginning, we said what we're going to do is we're going to develop an acceleration programs because we think that deal flow exists. And it's super easy just to take some startups who are looking for an acceleration process to make them investments ready. But we figured out after the first core that was not sufficient at all for the ecosystem. That was not a customized approach for the continent. We needed to go even further in terms of the value chain. This is why we decided to have these 6 steps and to cover the whole value chain. So within UM6P, we will find 30 support programs for startups, starting from the acculturation, which is the initial stage of that immerses entrepreneurs, PhDs, professors, engineers, students into the entrepreneurial spirits. So we emphasize the practical applications of their research and the importance to be market-driven from day one. The second step is education on entrepreneurship. And this is much more deeper than the acculturation because we offer robust training programs that cover essential entrepreneurial skills such as market analysis, business model development, commercialization strategies. And the goal is to empower them to think critically about their ideas and to think as an entrepreneur, even before the ideation phase. And of course, the particularity of UM6P is that after the education and the training, we have what we call the technology transfer process. And this is led by the Technology Transfer Office, the TTO. Super important it has 2 main missions. The first is to protect the IPs developed in the labs or developed startups. Super important. And they protect them not only on the local markets, but internationally, because this is one of the most important levers to value the innovations that are developed within the continent. This is one of the most important KPIs we focus on, by the way. The second role is how to mature technologies from the lab to the first stages of pre-incubation. Super important because we think that researching in the lab would easily ready or would be easily adapted to transform the research or the results of the research in the lab into a pitch deck and put them in the pitch deck and go pitch on the mentors, incubators, or all types of maybe business angels. And this is not the case. For most innovations developed in the lab, we need a maturation process. It can last few months, it can last few years, but the TTO does the work. It assesses what we call the TRL, the technology readiness level, and it helps the researchers in the last mile to make their innovation not market ready, but at least make the innovation understandable for a business in terms of business. So the next stage that we developed is the pre-incubation programs and the incubation programs. It's even before the acceleration. And basically it involves redefining the business idea, developing the initial pitch deck, conducting market evaluation, and also it involves rigorous testing and validation to ensure the product's reliability and the product market fit. So we do that. At the beginning, we did it by ourselves. Afterwards, we connected with the top-notch programs all over the world, such as MIT Sandbox Innovation Fund and other types of incubators that helped us bring the network of experts and the methodology that would help, especially for deep tech, that would help reach out this goal, which is how to move from, from a mere idea for researchers to a pitch deck that's going to be presented to business angels. And finally, not the very last step, but the step before is this acceleration. Super important because it's tailored to help the startup validate the idea into a market-ready products, and more importantly, it connects them to the global network, not only the continental network, to scale, and more importantly, to be able to pitch to VCs. And finally, there is the scale-up, which is also another vehicle that UM6P has, and which is also an important piece of the puzzle. If the startups reaches out the Series A in Africa, especially in deep tech, I mean, what are the funds that would be able to help for the scale-up, for the growth, expansion of the startup, how to assist them in scaled operations, entering new markets. So this is why we have a vehicle. It's independent vehicle. I don't lead this one, but it's a big machine called Innovex, which is specialized in integration. So UM6P, to make it short, is embraced a very holistic approach, because it is the only way, at least in our continent, in a very nascent innovation ecosystem that we have, to be able to build the first success stories.
Many thanks, Yassine. I think to this very detailed explanation, I think from the explanation we see that it's a structures process, and that definitely could be very helpful for many universities, because it's a challenges, at least to integrate what are the components, the technology transfer offices, the Innovex, all these components, how are they connected with the university, with the researchers. The last question in the round will be the way forward, at least to create a kind of platform where we can share this kind of expertise. And we have also other vehicle like Victor, which will speak about the Alliance for Entrepreneurial University, where I think this experience could be very useful. But in the same line, we have also Kati. Kati is Dr. Kati Ikiros. She's the manager at the Makerere University Port, which is also quite advanced. So through the Uniport program of the UNDP, they also have very advanced facility when it's come to Fab Lab. They also have good experiences on connecting. It will be good at least to hear from Kati. What is the Uniport program? How do you integrate innovation and entrepreneurship processes into the university? What are some best practices? So what you have so far. So the floor is yours, Kati.
Thank you, Eric. And to Yassine, I think it was quite interesting listening, though we lost Itero. Once again, my name is Kathe Ikirol-Mbide. I'm the manager for the Makerere University Innovation Port in Uganda. Makerere University is the largest, I think, and one of the oldest universities in Africa. Yeah, so in 2022, university management established the Uniport. Now, the main objective as to why it was established is to transform a lot of research. We have a lot of research coming from bachelor's level, a master's, or even postgraduate level, which is actually shelved. So the main objective was to commercialize. How do we transform these research outputs into actual products or into actual services? So the Uniport was established. Now it operates under the Vice Chancellor's office. Why? Because the university has 10 academic colleges with 10 different disciplines. So it is currently situated under the Vice Chancellor to provide support mechanisms to all the other units, to all the other academic units in agriculture, in health. We have business, we have law. But what are our key taglines? We say think creatively, innovate, protect, commercialize, and scale up. So what do we basically do at the Uniport? We provide a number of services. One of them is mainly capacity building for both staff and students. For staff and students, we blend We build their capacity in terms of the ideation of what they have in terms of their idea, but we focus more on the areas of specialization. Are they mechanical students? Are they students in health? Are they in agriculture? What are their research concepts? So we give them access to the Unipod, where we have machinery and equipment with 10 maker spaces. So when they come into the Unipod at the maker spaces, we have an electrical unit, we have a mechanical unit, we have a studio, we have state-of-the-art CNC machines, we have CAD rooms. This enables the students and staff to develop and nurture their products, coming from a research aspect towards prototyping. So they access the facility, they're able to develop a prototype. Now, as they come in at the Unipod, we provide both the technical support, but we tend to also align it to entrepreneurship. For example, where a student in pharmacy recently had a research, a pharmacy student was researching on a specific malaria drug. Okay, so yes, the technical part of it, we work hand in hand with the supervisors to see that, yes, they have done the required kind of research activities needed. Now at the Unipod, we tend to see how can we, other than meeting the academic criteria, how can we take this to the next level and see, yes, the production of this. So we work with government agencies like the Drug Authority, the Registration Service Bureau, the Standards Bureau, and support this innovation or this idea for the student, which is coming from a research academic unit towards actualizing the product. So we create that kind of platform where a student is continuously mentored by the academic staff, but then we do the linkage in terms of the entrepreneurial interventions on how they can get funding. We provide them with the space, now provide the acceleration services, because a scientist is very technical. A scientist does not know how to market. You know, a scientist does not know how to plan. Financial issues are not quite critical to them. So that is where we actually come in to say, oh, how do we now transform this research output into an actual product that is needed by society? Or so we customize the intervention. And as I've mentioned, we are quite, a diverse university. A health aspect is different from an agricultural aspect. And then this has also taken us into policy advocacy. For example, we have a situation where a professor has come up with a soy variety that we are looking for investors to invest. But we did not, as a university, we did not have guidelines on how to commercialize this soy foundation. So we found it a bit difficult on actually, presenting it to the private sector. Private sector, the industry is very aggressive. We are coming from an intimidating kind of environment where we are so streamlined and structured. So it has taken us back to see how do we review and develop policies to basically support this research to be able to get onto the market and maybe be invested in for both the university to gain its, to attain its vision, but then to also see that the innovator also benefits from this, and then the government. And then at the end of it all, we are solving a social problem. So we provide access to funding, access to the Unipod, the different communities. Now, our main clients, our target are staff and students of Makerere University. Though we also work with the students across the country, and we also work with the community, has also now shown the demand to access the Unipod because of the nature of machinery and equipment we have. Our other secondary client is government, because we are a government public institution. So government is also coming in to say there is an issue in this region, either it is in health, either it's in energy. So how can the Unipod, be able to support such initiatives? Now, what gives us an edge as a Unipod is the top management support. Very, very critical to us. Top management support. We also have support from government. where we are also able to get some fund for commercialization coming in from government. But then we also have a very wide, diverse staff and students. So in terms of expertise, we are actually, yes, that is quite a positive on our side. Though all is not that rosy, we have also gotten into a kind of seeking for partnerships. One of our most recent partner is the UNDP that has invested in us a 1.5 facility in terms of equipment and machinery to be able to nurture these innovations. Now, in terms of that, the equipment we have obtained, we noticed that, okay, how are we going to spur these innovations? Yes, they're able to identify the prototypes. They're able to get these, onto the market, identify these innovations, but that is not good enough. How do we support startups? So here we are working with, we are going to actually start on a blended program where during the day, we allow innovators to come and learn some programs and use the facility, but we now have developed a program whereby we are going to allow these innovators access the machinery and equipment for production and pay a subscription fee. So this is currently actually helping us to see how we can sustain the facility, but also to ensure that these startups actually don't die along the way. Because some of those that we have nurtured don't have space, cannot afford to pay for some of these spaces. So at the end of the day, you'll have the innovation maybe die or lose or is lost out in the market. So those are some of the maybe key aspects. Now, the key challenges we are currently facing as the Uniport within the university, our biggest challenge is lack of an enterprise fund oriented. And why do I say so? As a university, previously in all our interventions, the research funds are available to do the research, do the prototyping. But when we saw that we need to now get to the next level of the actual product development, it is a kind of, actually it is going to involve a policy revolution. Because even when the government gives us around 30 billion every year in Ugandan shillings, around 150 US dollars. However, this fund is only supporting research. It's not supporting the entrepreneurial aspect of this research, which is actually killing the research and the innovations. Then one other thing we are learning at the Uniport, which is really a challenge, is the skill set. Yes, the researchers are very good, but the researchers cannot start enterprises, cannot manage these entrepreneurial ventures. Implying at the Uniport, we need to have a skill set ready to go to the market, okay? Ready to sell. As I've mentioned, we currently have one, we have one foundation seed we are supposed to take to the investors, but we are even grappling on how to get this to the market. And now that is quite critical. How do we even sell these innovations to be able to tap into the funding? Then the newness of an Uniport in a university is also a very, very critical challenge, which we cannot actually ignore. Universities are used to, yes, doing research, but they're not used to doing business. And when you look at the current trend, if we're going to be research-led, if we're going to turn around and solve these communities, we also need to develop an entrepreneurial mindset within the university. So the newness of how a university can become entrepreneurial and churn out these companies is also a challenge. It's actually a learning process to us. Then the other key challenge we are faced with is the policy framework. When we try to review some of our policies, we have intellectual property policy, we have a research policy, but we do not have an enterprise policy. Now, this also has a linkage or a lineage to the country's policies. We have innovation policies, but they are not clear on how we should actually start these companies. And they are not actually speaking to each other. There is a lot of fragmentation, there's a lot of misconnect, which also is into the institutions. In Uganda, we have the Science, Technology and Innovation Secretariat. We have the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, okay? We have the Ministry of Constitutional Affairs. Now, when you look at the policy guidelines coming out of all this, they are not actually, we do not have a clear innovation policy or entrepreneurial policy. We basically have a small micro enterprise policy, which does not clearly support or provide a clear framework or pathway. If innovations are going to come from the universities, if the innovations are going to come from the community, what is the pathway, or how should they be speaking to each other in terms of development? So
Maybe
what we have adopted.
if you can come close, since we still have 2 or 3 other, I think all of the aspects that you have mentioned really give us an in-depth understanding of how, with also the presentation of Yassine, how this process are working at the university and the challenges. If you can just come closer to your speech, so that we can also bring now the broader perspective with the UNECA, Alliance for Entrepreneurial, what also the GIZ is doing, and also allow the participants to raise some question. I see already that is a raised hand. Please, all of the participants, send your question in the chat, and then we will have at the end a session where we just go through the question. And if you are addressing a question to a particular panelist, also highlight it, and then we will go through that. Just at least to come to summarize more or less to some of the introduction, so that we can also go to the other panelists.
Okay.
Yes, if you still have something quite, let's say, important that you wanted, at least that you just mentioned, so that we move. If there's another aspect, for example, that you were thinking definitely you want to mention it, it's the time. So before we move to the next.
Okay. Maybe what I would want to mention is what has worked and maybe aligned to some of our success stories. As we launched the Unipod in January 2024. So we adopted a system of where we go back to the different lecturers in the different disciplines, and we aligned the course units or the content of what we are going to give the students. But then what is happening at the Unipod, we are seeing now the actual product, where we are able to achieve the academic goals. Okay, a scenario in case is the recent 4th year students who have been able to use the Unipod to develop a prototype which meets academic standards, but right now which we are also accelerating in terms of how do we remodel this into an actual product. We actually have, one has developed a small CNC machine, and then one has developed a robot, a bricklaying robot, okay, and then a medicinal, a Maisha drug. So this, in Jan, were basically student ideas, supervised by students, but when they come to the Unipod, we have a number of questions that are not asked in class. And that is why I mentioned it is really, I think, our best in terms of what we have achieved. How can this transformation from research to to products that can meet market needs or solve societal problems are actually solving the problems. Now we are actually able to attract funding because of that basic transition from research class to the market. Okay. So that is what I wanted to share as one of our best success stories, which is actually now trying to attract a number of partners who would want to work with us, but using the same model.
No, I think many things.
Thank you so much.
It gives us really an in-depth on the challenges. So I'm working in the 2 phases, in the tech hub ecosystem and at the university, and the acceptances of professors in the continent on integrating entrepreneurial activities at the university, from my experience, is one of the biggest, since the evaluation, the promotion system doesn't really integrate. They are based on paper publication, they are not based on entrepreneurship. So that are also some other challenges. This webinar session, is a start of a bigger discussion. So in the frame of the renovation project in September, we will have more time for all participants working on the topic, just drop us a mail. We will have in September a longer space where we will go in depth on all and also create avenue and platform for further collaboration. So it's just a kind of initiating a process. So we continue now with the with institutional actors like the UNECA with Dr. Victor Conde, which will talk about the Alliance for Entrepreneurial University in Africa. Dr. Victor Conde, the floor is yours. He's the Chief of Section in Innovation and Technology at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and is also the focal point for the Alliance for Entrepreneurial University. If you can tell us what is the Alliance for Entrepreneurial University, how to join, how can you support university joining this alliance? What are they doing? So it will be very helpful. So Victor, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just turn on my camera for a second. Maybe you can see me. First of all, okay, my name is Victor Conde. I'm not the chief of the Science and Technology section in ECA. I'm actually a Scientific Affairs Officer in our section. I think the chief is my colleague that you had talked to. So I'll talk to you today about the Alliance of Entrepreneurial Universities. I had a few slides. I'm going to share them, but perhaps in the interest of time, I'll try and just summarize it. So the Alliance of Entrepreneurial Universities was formed, I think, we are now just in our year 2. And it was formed, I think, after several consultations and also based on some research that we undertook, a survey in Kenya, in Ethiopia, South Africa, and recently we did on Rwanda and Ghana. Basically about, I think, 6 countries we've covered now. We are waiting for Egypt, but we already did Algeria. So in a way, we have a number of ideas to just find out what's going on within our universities. So maybe to just give you, first of all, where we are, then I will end with what did we want to do, instead of like what we want to do. Currently, we have more members. We have about 40 former members that collectively have about 1.1 million. And in terms of geography, I think most of our universities are in Kenya, about 11, 9 in South Africa, 4 in Ethiopia, Ghana has about 3, and then several, a few, maybe 1 to 2 in Botswana, Burundi, Egypt, Eswatini, Lesotho, Libya, Malawi, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. We also have informal members, about 30 of them, in countries also including Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, Benin, Mauritius, and Zambia. And of course, our target is to reach at least 25% of the African universities that we think will be really core. And of course, that we should want to reach all the countries. So we just put up a little, more like quasi-secretariat that based on our members on nomination of staff that will looking at the target in terms of partners. We're working with Google, UNESCO, some of the private businesses, and a number of government agencies. And then, of course, what is our target? A little bit ambitious. Of course, our target is that our universities in Africa should at least seed about 1 million startups capable of generating about $200 billion in 10 years. And now that's out to be very ambitious, but if anyone knows the population of African students in universities today, we have approximately 18 million now in students in African universities. And so by then, in the next 10 years, and our universities are growing at about 10–20%, our estimates that we should have at least 40 to 50 million students that have gone through our universities. So it shouldn't be really that hard to get just 1 million startups. And if we assume that if you want to die, you still end up with 1 million. And of course, the total entrepreneurial activity in Africa is somewhere around 6% in Morocco, and all the way to about 50% in countries like Nigeria. And most of our own startup young people from universities will have to either partner with colleagues, work in the private sector. We don't think the public sector will create so many jobs. And for that, I think we universities need to do a little bit more. And of course, so with that, that's the reason we think it's realistic. Now, a number of our colleagues have already talked about innovation hubs and incubators and all the kind of things in universities. For the Alliance, we are looking at it that the entrepreneurial mission of universities actually stem from 2 aspects. One is from research. So you have your research lab. because you have teaching labs, they really don't produce the businesses you are looking about, or the patents or inventions or the products or the spin-offs. It's really largely your university research labs, which mainly have master's, PhD, and other project students, consulting projects. Then you have your self-funded research labs, which are really, we are in short supply in Africa. Most of our labs in universities are really research labs, and some of our universities don't have self-funded labs. But some of our members have. I mean, if you have been to Kenya and you have at the Mwai Kibaki University, you'll find perhaps up to about 10 labs that are called self-financing labs. So in a way, there is actually somewhere you can start from. And those are the labs where I think universities with the university research labs and self-funded research labs are likely to really play an important role in seeding, for example, startups or spin-offs or licensing products that others can take up and build businesses. Of course, there is also a second mission for entrepreneurial mission in universities accomplished either through basically entrepreneurship training. And the idea is that you expose everyone to stimulate everyone actually to embrace entrepreneurship, either through teaching and learning or forming societies, let's say student societies or communities, or through, for example, incubation hubs that take up people with their own ideas that are not necessarily born from their research activities. Again, the main aim here is that we are changing the mindset, the culture, and the business and the technical skills you are building. Of course, you're also trying to connect and network with your students, and you're trying to inspire or showcase and fund. Basically, just trying to stimulate entrepreneurship. We don't think those two actually are mutually exclusive, where university should be able to either drive both your entrepreneurship-led, which is you are basically encouraging everyone to pursue entrepreneurship, whether they're doing history or they're doing law or they're doing medicine or they're doing engineering. They shouldn't, the entrepreneurship in university should not only come from engineering labs. And of course, you want us to encourage your engineering labs or your medical labs, of course, to create some of your unicorns and others that are more knowledge-based. And since Africa really wants to become a knowledge-based economy, based on the targets you set yourself, we think that is equally important. So in a nutshell, what we did before, not to inform ourselves, is we did our survey of universities. We looked at using one of the standard, I think what now it's called the Higher Innovate. It's basically a tool that was used in Europe, and it's still there up to today being used. And we looked at leadership and governance, impact measurements, internationalization, external business relations, pathways of entrepreneurs, teaching and learning, and people and incentives. And most of our universities perform pretty badly on impact measurement. I think someone talked about it. We have innovation hubs and incubators, but actually we don't actually know what is coming out of those incubators or labs. I mean, there are people inside, but if you tell them, ask them how much came out, or we got very few answers in there. And most of the, since their self-assessment, that's one area that we are not doing so well. And then pathway for entrepreneurs is another one. And of course, people and incentives. In universities, people are not promoted for promoting entrepreneurship. In fact, they are not even hired for promoting entrepreneurship. We hire lecturers only for their ability to teach and the ability to do research. So that brings us to why the Alliance. And so one of the main focuses of the Alliance, really, if I was to summarize it, is to get our universities and many of our research institutions be part and parcel of their local and their national innovation ecosystems. Basically, they should be part of solving problems that are in the community. And one of the reasons most of our universities can't really get funding from our private sector is because they are not addressing the problems that private sector has. They are not developing drugs together with the private sector. They are busy doing research on malaria based on what they know. They haven't actually looked at the person who produces drugs on malaria and say, okay, what is your problem? What challenges are you facing? What new products do you want to develop? And how do we work with you? So in a way, that is a call at our thinking. We are not talking to people developing infrastructure, for example, whether they're roads or power. My power goes off every day in my country, and most of our universities are not addressing that. So we are not addressing basically the issues that affect our societies. We are addressing more the issues that we're interested in. And yet we could actually do high-tech research literally in those areas. whether it's infrastructure, or we're looking about agriculture and hunger, or you're talking about healthcare. So in some, while we're looking at how do we inspire, get our universities actually to encourage teaching and learning courses and materials for students, teachers, the investors, and all their partners. Everyone who processes with the university should know that entrepreneurship is core at their center. I was at a university in Finland. People learn about entrepreneurship during orientation. They don't learn about it from an incubator or from an innovation hub. It is like literally at the center of it. Similarly, of course, we want to build entrepreneurship societies. Right now, I think we're trying to see how do we work with universities to get students themselves to become promoters of entrepreneurship. They couldn't be students, they may be based in students by school or by gender or by field of specialization. And of course, we also want to see how do we inspire innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems within the university. It should be possible to have platforms within our university that go beyond just an incubator or an innovation hub. So those are important, but we need an area where people can do experimentation, they can do learning, documentation. So in a way, we are also looking at how else we encourage sharing of good experiences and practices among our members. So from newsletters to webinars like this, and we have a forum that we just held two. We are out in the process of organizing the third one that we're hoping will be in Kenya. And we get our students to come and showcase what they're doing, but we also get our vice chancellors to come and say how they are promoting entrepreneurship as one of their commissions in their universities and see if they can learn from each other. And finally, of course, where I started from is we really want to integrate universities in their local and national innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems, looking at linkages, relationships that they build. I mean, it is impossible that a professor doesn't know anyone in their own city who is running a business in their area of specialization, because we went to school with these people that today run, I don't know, power companies, run hospitals, or run agriculture, or run farms, or they run factories. So it is not possible that we actually don't have a relationship with those people. So in a way, those are some of the things that we are actually looking at when we are building the alliance. Right now, the chair of the alliance is actually Geoffrey Munari, who is the CEO of Universities Fund Kenya, and a couple of others that we're working with. So we have also what we call the ecosystem promoters, which are like I said, Innovation Fund Kenya, Universities Fund Kenya, for example, or in South Africa, for example, we work with the University South Africa, which is another organization where all the vice chancellors of public universities are members of the board. So in a way, that is where we are. And of course, we would call no university that wish to join. We have the Alliance has its own website that they're currently being worked on by its own members. We have a form that you need to complete if you want to become a formal member. But we're also, because it's run by currently run by supported by the UN, all universities that want to participate are welcome, even if they are not formal members. Like I said, we have actually more informal members than formal members. And some of our informal members actually are more active than the formal members. Okay. So maybe I stop here for now. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to provide some answers if I can. Thank you.
We have some also input that Itoro sent in the chat, how AfriLab is addressing that for the participants. So this connection with the TechUp for the participant, take the times to go through them. We have also one question from the chat that we will address from Ferdinand Tonier from the UNU INRA. But before that, we will go to another big actors in the continent, let's say, the support arm of the German Technical Cooperation. So when it's come to entrepreneurship in Africa, the Make IT program, we have Matthias, who is the head of the Make IT program. So we would like to know a bit from him, what is the Make IT program as actor of the, let's say, international cooperation with African countries, working over the last 4 years in this ecosystem? What have you seen, and why is it important to connect that the universities and the TechUp, and what are your future plans in this line with the Make IT program?
Thank you very much, Eric. Being conscious of time, I will try to make it in 3 to maximum 5 minutes. Let's go. So the Make IT in Africa project is not running only since 4 years, but we're actually running since 2016. So we have some quite experience in the field. We are commissioned by the German Development Corporation in order to support innovation ecosystems and to support them to be future ready. And therefore, being future ready means different things. One is also to specialize and to professionalize and to address specific topics. We believe that this combination is creating impactful change, and from a societal, environmental, and economical perspective, and through these corporations, we can really benefit from each other. The Make IT in Africa program has already supported 700 startups from more than 26 African countries, and over the time we worked with more than 130 innovation enablers or entrepreneurship support organizations. And for us, it was always important how we work with our African partners and what we are incentivizing or nudging through this kind of programs that we're running together. And at the heart of all the programs that we were doing, we were focusing on cooperation readiness, on open innovation, and also on the ability to understand the logic and shortcoming expectations from each other, because it's not necessarily easy if you set some researchers and established companies, innovation stakeholders in one room, that they understand each other, or they might think they understand each other, but we have to invest in the ability to understand each other. That was always at the heart of what our program was doing. I think we've been pretty successful also in the numbers that that we've seen. So the startups that we supported raised over 150 million euros in follow-up funding, not necessarily only through our activities, but I think we have a pretty good selection and knows to select the right startups. But what we have seen also with the global capital shortage and decline in VC investment in Africa, like 24% over the last years, we see an even higher need to professionalize and specialize in order to stand out, to find partners and to find investors. And this has also led to a change in the German Development Corporation portfolio, and to think about to shift the focus in 2 different directions. And this is on specialization in R&D and adding additional funding, because there's this shortage. And so this changes also a little bit the role of Development Corporation, because we were shying away from funding, not to have a market distortion. Now we see also the need that there is some funding needed in a very early stage, and that we can also provide. I'm perhaps special in this round because I'm coming more from the innovation side and not from the academia side. So count me in as someone who is interested to work with you and to bridge the gap between the 2 silos. And in order to do that, the German Development Corporation has broadened their portfolio, and we are currently working on different projects. One new project is currently being set up as a follow-up project of Make IT in Africa. It's called Spark. It will be based in Kenya and working from Kenya on a Pan-African level. But at the heart, the cooperation together with science, research, and R&D institutions, TTOs were mentioned as well. This is what this project will be doing, and would also love to reach out to you. And I will also be a point of contact if you have the need for more information. To give one example that we want to invest in is also as scientists in residence. So to enable also the movement from researchers, academia, students in order to work in startups, to also get a job placement in startups, not necessarily only as a founder, but there are also positions as CTOs and or just as an employee in startups to bring this academic perspective and to bridge this gap. So to reduce the hurdles, to work with each other and to get to know each other, to be curious, but also help them to get into this world, because sometimes they are hesitant to get into this world. The second part, or let me conclude on this one. So Spark is also part of a bigger European initiative called the African-European Digital Innovation Bridge, which will start later this year, which is also looking at science-based innovation in Africa and the connection towards the European ecosystems. So therefore, the European member states also aligning at the moment in order to set up new projects and interventions. This is not this is not at a point where it's completely public because it's being designed at the moment. But just also for you to know that these projects will be starting in later this year. So we see a dynamic and interest, a curiosity of international organizations and also funding agencies towards this topic, and to address this gap that is still existing between research, academia, and innovation. I want to conclude by what is new for us. It's, as I said, incentivizing researchers to take position in ventures, redirecting, establishing fund of funds for R&D-based innovation, rethinking traditional startup support models from incubation to acceleration to perhaps establish more venture builder approaches. There's one avenue. And establish innovation clusters that include academia, research centers, and TTOs, but in cooperation with innovation ecosystem stakeholders and established companies so that they're not siloed. And one last thing that we see highly important, and it was also mentioned in the speeches before, the focus on research commercialization and enable direct involvement of students in problem solving of existing companies, and especially startups and ventures, so that they can hire also students in order to solve problems for them, and the IP lies with the companies. So not necessarily startups being born out of universities, but giving them the opportunity to work for established companies to also get this mindset, but in real life and not in a theoretical format. I stop here. I could go on for some time, but I think my time is up. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Matthias, for this broader perspective from the German cooperation to the European Union level, how far this world can, this challenge or this synergy can be supported, and how does it align with your work. So we had in the chat, so I will just take maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to conclude, since the webinar was planned for 1 hour. We have one question, one very interesting question on the informal sectors. We know in all of our country that the economic is also driven in many countries by the informal sectors. If we are thinking on agriculture, how far could they be integrated into discussion? I think the question is from Ferdinand. I guess it's a very complex question that will have been addressed to all participants, but for the respect of time, so I think it's something that we will address in the broader frame of cooperation, which brings me to the second question of Prasen, how you and the Greenovation project could, as an orchestrator, catalyzer on this discussion, so, and what are the actionable steps? As already mentioned in the beginning, it's the initiation of the discussion we will have in September, a broader with much time, which all actors interested to work on the topic, all the panelists and also all the participants, just drop out a mail. So we definitely have already your email since you have registered through the platform. So we will send you the, let's say, the planning of the bigger workshop, which will take place in September. So to create the kind of actionable platform where all these different perspectives could be organized, and also synergies between the different actors, the European Union, the UN, and the practitioners. So we will have a longer session in September where we will follow up the discussion, and we will send you further information in the upcoming weeks as the summary of this webinar. Many thanks once again to all the experts. I think we had different perspectives from practice, from international cooperation. So it's really a good start to bring all these different actors together. And as already mentioned, many thanks to the colleagues who have supported the organization, Yannick and Flannery, so in Tarisai. So, and definitely we will continue the conversation addressing the specific question like the private sector's involvement. We will have a larger time slot in September where we will address this topic and put more or less a solid ground on collaboration on this. So yes, maybe one on the last note, we also have, as already mentioned, this webinar is part of a series. The next webinar will take place on the 26th of June, where we will talk on closing the gap between climate finance and green innovators and entrepreneurs. So meaning all the pledge that we have when we are talking on green finances, GCF and carbon market, how far this money could also reach innovators, because innovators are working already toward greening, toward climate action. But on the other side, there are a lot of pledge when it's come to green sectors, which have been mentioned by country. How far can we close the gap between these two worlds? For that, we will have the UNIDO, we will have hopefully the African Development Bank, and the Climate Innovation Center in Kenya, and the UNFCCC, the Secretariat of the Climate Action. So that is the webinar which will take place in 26th of June. We will have another one on the 3rd of June on the policy environment. Many actors has mentioned here the policy at the national level. So what is the policy framework to enable green entrepreneurship from global vision to local impact? This one will be on the 3rd of June. On the 17th of July, we will have another one on women, the challenges of women when it comes to green innovation and entrepreneurship. And at the 16th of August, in the frame of the Green Innovation Project, we have developed what we call the blueprint for virtual tech-up services. All the actors which have been mentioned here, in the frame of the project, we have developed an online platform which help at least to orchestrate all these different services. We will present the blueprint first, how if you want to make a pitch, an incubation, a capacity building, and if you want to run these services online, how do you organize it? So we have brought that into a blueprint, and we have also developed an online platform, which is an open source platform, which will also be further discussed in September, how that could be populated, and university will take that at least to move their different processes online. So we will, in the summary of this webinar, we will also send the agenda of the upcoming webinar, and we hope to have you all in this webinar. Thanks once again for your participation and for the lively debate. And we will see you hopefully in the next webinar session. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You.
Thank you, everyone.